Brucha Aboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Nun Amud Aleph, 11 lines from the top. The Gemara until now has been discussing a question whether the par that the Kohen Gadol shechs on Yom Kippurim, if he does so and then he dies before the dam has been brought to be sprinkled in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and the new Kohen Gadol is now in his place, can that new Kohen Gadol use that dam, or does he have to now shecht a new par? The Gemara brought from the pasuk that says par a machloikis. Do we classify that as being par v'afilu damo shel par, or do we say the classification is only par, not damo shel par? Machloikis amoroim. Now the Gemara asks, v'teipuk lei dechata shemeisoi baleohi. Let us derive and prove that it says a chatos, which is what the par of Yom Kippurim is. It's a chatos. So if the bailim were to die, so we know then if the bailim to die, the chatos shemeso bailel lemisa ozla, then that chatos has to go to misa, and therefore over here the par shel kohen gadol, if indeed the kohen gadol dies subsequently, then the new Kohen Gadol has to shech the new par. Omar le Rovim bar Rav Ade le Rove. Amrei Talmidech. Omar Rav Amram. Your student said the name of Rav Amram. Chatos tzibur hi v'loi lemisa ozla. This par is a par of a chatos tzibur, and this is a par of a chatos tzibur. Therefore, it does not go to death. Whereby the second Kohen Gadol can use the dam and be zorik its dam in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. This nan, and now Rav Amram wants to prove that indeed the par of Yom Kippurim of the Kohen Gadol is a par of a chata shel tzibur. This nan, Omar lo Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says to the Tanakama, v'halo par Yom Kippurim v'chaviti Kohen Gadol u'Pesach the carbon yachid hein v'doichen es haShabbos v'esatuma. Rabbi Meir says to the Tanakama, he says to him, because the Tanakama wants to say a generalization and say, when do we say something is doiche Shabbos and doiche Tuma? That's when you have a korban tzibur. The korban tzibur then has the dispensation, the kula, to be doiche Shabbos. Even though Shabbos, you're not allowed to shecht, you're not allowed to then burn meat on a mizbeach, but if it's a korban tzibur, it's doiche. Similarly, when it comes to tuma, normally we say if the kohanim are tameh, they can't bring up the korban, or if the tzibur is offering the korban, right? You would think that they can't bring up the korban in a state of tuma. When it comes to the tzibur, it's doiche tuma. So that's what the Tanakama says. On that, Rabbi Meir responds and says that we have certain cases, I'll show you, Par Yom Kippurim, Chaviti Kohen Gadol, and Pesach. These are karbonos of a yachid, and they are doiche the Shabbos, and they're doiche Tuma. Lav Mechlal Diika Leman De Omar De Tzibur. From here, Rav Amram wants to prove, from the words of Rabbi Meir, a diuk, that since Rabbi Meir is calling these things a korban yachid, including a paroi shel Yom Kippurim, then there's a Tanakama who then held that indeed this is considered to be a korban tzibur. So the paro is indeed a korban tzibur, as Rav Amram is proving. Therefore, as a korban tzibur, the second Kohen Gadol can now use that dam. We don't say this holich lemisa. Uletaimech. Now Rava comes to challenge Rav Amram's proof to say that the par of Yom Kippurim is a korban tzibur. Diktani, for it's taught, Omar la Rabbi Yaakov. Rabbi Yaakov is the hemshech of the Brisa, and he now speaks against the Tanakama. Ve'aloi par helim dover shel tzibur v'sirei avodas kochavim v'chagiga the korban tzibur. All of these are korban tzibur. Ve'ein doichin loyes haShabbos v'loyes hatuma, and they do not doiche Shabbos and they do not doiche tuma. Michlal. In other words, you're saying again the Tanakama that if it's korban tzibur, it's doiche. If it's korban yachid, it's not doiche. Here we have instances of a korban tzibur, and it's not doiche. That's Rabbi Yaakov's argument. Michlal, the ikalaman the omer the yochid. So on that, Rava argues and says, does that mean to say that the Tanakama holds that these things, these karbonos, are indeed karbonos of a yachid? Certainly not. Maybe you can argue that a chagiga is a yachid, but the first two that mentioned, Rabbi Yaakov mentioned, par helam davar shel tzibur, which is when the Sanhedrin paskins that something is mutter erroneously, and as a result the tzibur, or at least the rov of the tzibur, is then over the aveira, thinking that it's mutter, and it carries with it a chiyuv kares. So such a thing requires a carbon par helam davar shel tzibur. Certainly belongs to the tzibur. And also the seir avodas kolchavim, a similar situation where the Sanhedrin paskins that something that is they say that it's mutter when it's indeed avodah zara, which carries with it a chiyuv of kares, also requires a tzibur to bring a seir. So certainly it's a korban tzibur. You wouldn't say that Tanakam will hold that it's a korban yachid. Argues Rava. Ella says Rava letanakamo kamahaderle. Rather, what Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yaakov are doing, they're coming to then respond to the Tanakama. The Shamei the kamar korban tzibur doiches hashav v'vesatuma v'korban yachid eino doiches hashav v'vesatuma. They're coming to respond against the Tanakama. The Tanakama says that a korban tzibur is always doiche, Shabbos and Tuma, and a korban yachid is not. On that, they're coming to respond. Omer Rabbi Meir, korban yachid klalahu. Rabbi Meir says to Tanakama, are you going to say that you're saying a klal, that a korban yachid is never doiche Shabbos and is not doiche Tuma? I'll prove to you otherwise. V'aloi, par Yom HaKippurim, v'chavite kohen gadol uPesach, the korban yachid hu v'doichin es hashav v'zatuma. All of these things are korban yachid, including parasha Yom Kippurim, and they are doiche Shabbos and they are doiche tuma. V'omar lo Rabbi Yaakov korban tzibur klalahu. Ask Rabbi Yaakov, are you going to say korban tzibur? You're saying it's a klal that it's always doiche Shabbos and always doiche Yom Tiv and always doiche tuma. Ask Rabbi Yaakov to the Tanakama v'haloi. I'll bring you instances that show otherwise. Par helam dover shel tzibur v'siri avodas kochavim v'chagiga the korban tzibur hu ve'ein doichin lo yesa Shabbos v'lo yesa tuma. These are korban tzibur, and they do not doiche Shabbos, and they do not doiche tuma. Elo nokit haiklol b'yadchar. Rather, either Rabbi Meir is speaking now, or Rabbi Yaakov is speaking now to the Tanakama and saying, hold on to the following principle. Because it's the following principle that's koveya if something is doiche Shabbos or doiche tumor, if it's not. It's not tolui on whether it's a korban tzibur or a korban yachid. Kol shezmanoi kavua doiches ha-Shabbos v'satumah afil b'yachid. The kol she'ein zmano kavua eino doiche les ha-Shabbos los ha-tumah v'afil b'tzibur. It's tolui on whether it's a korban that's kavua or not. If it's kavua, whether it's yachid or tzibur, it's doiche Shabbos and doiche tuma. If it's not kavua, then it doesn't make a difference. Even if it's a tzibur, it's not going to be then doiche Shabbos and doiche tuma. Eisvei Abaye. So if we stop over here, then indeed Rava has then challenged Rav Amram, and he shows that the par shel Yom HaKippurim is a korban yachid. In which case, if it's a korban yachid, and since it's a chatos, and the bailim, the kohen gadol had died, then the chatas has to be going to misa, whereby the second kohen gadol has to now shecht a new paro. You can't use the dam from the first par. Eisvei Abaye comes to ask on Rove, par v'so'ir yishol Yom HaKippurim she'ovdu v'hifrish acherim tachtein kulam yamusu. If you have a par and a sor Yom HaKippurim that got lost, and they were mafrish a different par and a different sor in its place, then according to this Tana, they all have to then be left to die. So Rabbi Yehuda says that's also true when it comes to the Siri Avodas Kochavim. If it was lost and they're mafrish one in its place, so then they also both have to be left to die. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon Oimrim, they argue and say Yiru Ashi Stavu, V'yimkuru, V'yiplu Demein Linedava. You have to let them get a mum, Then, when they graze and get a mum, you to sell them, and then take the proceeds to buy korbanos tzibur, which is an oila for the keit hamizbeach. Not allow the mizbeach to be without korbanos. There shouldn't be a lull, so to speak, and therefore this money will go towards the korbanos tzibur. She'ein chatas tzibur mesa, and they conclude their words by saying why? Because she'ein chatas tzibur mesa. So you see over here that they clearly include paro shel Yom Kippurim as a chatas tzibur, which is like Rav Amram had said. And if it's a chatas tzibur, then indeed you can use the blood from the first Kohen Gadol's shchita. Omalei, Rava responds, my par, what's meant when it says par? When it says over here, par, in this brisa, par v'sir Yom Kippurim, par helam davar shel tzibur. In other words, Rava is saying that it says par v'sir Yom Kippurim, it's referring to par helam davar shel tzibur, v'sir shel Yom Kippurim. It's not going, Yom Kippurim is not going on par. I asked the Gemara not so fast, v'ho shel Yom Kippurim kitani. Behold, it teaches Yom Kippurim, kitani adesir. He says it's going on seer. Ask the Gemara, but still, v'hatani, we have a brisa that says explicitly that the parsha Yom Kippurim as follows: parsha Yom HaKippurim, v'seir shel Yom Kippurim, she'avdu v'hifrish acherim tachteim kulam yamusu. Div Rabbi Yehuda. That's just Rabbi Yehuda. They all have to die. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon oimim yeru ad sheyistavu v'yimkeru. Here, clearly, in this version of the brisa, it separates and says par Shem HaKippurim and seir Shem HaKippurim. So now Rava cannot say that the par is referring to something else. And again, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon conclude their words by saying shein chatas tzibur mesa. So they clearly hold that a par. They're saying that it's a chatas tzibur. Gemara says lo teima she'ein chatas tzibur mesa. Rava responds, don't say that she'ein chatas tzibur mesa, the words that were quoted just before. Ela ema she'ein chatas hashutfim mesa. Rather say the words in the brisa conclude that chatas of shutfim have to be left to die, or cannot be left to die, according to Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon. Ask the Gemara, my nafka mina, what would make a difference anyways? If indeed Rav Amram says it's a korban sibur, the para shel kayan gadol on Yom Kippurim, that para is a korban sibur, and as a result, therefore it's not left to die, meaning to say it could be used, the par, dam could be used by the second kayan gadol, unlike a korban, if it was a korban yachid. So what makes a difference if it's considered to be a korban sibur, or if it's a korban shutfin? The same conclusion would be made. If it's a korban shutfin, also the second kohen gadol could go ahead and use that dam for the sprinkling on in the kodesh hakadoshim. So my nafka mina. Take a look at Rashi. My nafka mina. Kiven the soif lav lemisa ozil. It's not going to misa, and therefore that parasha Yom Kippurim can be used by the second Kohen Gadol. V'shapir tovitz Rav Amram le'il. Then it's very good. Rav Amram answered, that which you wanted to answer up, that you cannot use the dam again, because when it comes to the chatos, the korban chatos, whose bailim died, then you can't use that dam again. My nafkalei l'rava l'sluke l'Rav Amram. What would be the difference in Rava to remove that which Rav Amram had said, to displace his words? My dekriya chata sibur luk me bechatesh hashufim. What makes a difference? That he changes and says use the words hashutfin instead of saying chatas of vetzibur. The same conclusion would be made. Would be a kasha on Rava anyways. Answers the Gemara deloy maisu kohanim parbara. The Gemara is now saying en hachenami. Rava agrees with Rav Amram's conclusion. In other words, he agrees that you can go ahead and still you don't have a proof that you can't use the dam of the par that was shechted by the Kohen Gadol who died. That you can't say, but for a different reason, not because it's a paroi shel Kohen Gadol, which is considered to be a par of Shel Tzibur. That's not the reason. It's a par Shel Shutfin. Why is that a nafkamina? Why is that important? First of all, he doesn't agree that it's a Shel Tzibur because here we're talking about the Kohanim, and the Kohanim are not themselves a Tzibur. What's the nafkamina? The Lo Maisi Kohanim par Baharo. In the event that there's such a thing as a par Helim Davar Shel Tzibur, when the Sanhedrin paskins a certain thing that is mutter, when it was an erroneous psak, and the Kohanim, they themselves were over that avera, which carries with a korban, not a korban, but rather a chiyuv kares. So when we say it's one of the shvatim in Klal Yisrael that does that, so then they have to bring a par helam davar echad shel tzibur. But says Rava, we cannot say the paroi of the Kohen Gadol that's considered to be the Kohanim. If the Talmidim hear this and they think that's a tzibur, like Rav Amram was saying, they'll think that that's also the same din when it comes to Kohanim, that were over an erroneous psak by Sanhedrin. On that, Rava takes issue and says that's not so. The Kohanim are not a kahal on themselves. They're not considered to be a tzibur on themselves, like the rest of Klal Yisrael, like the other shvatim in Klal Yisrael. And therefore they would not bring a par helam davar echad shel tzibur. Toshma, the Gemara now continues to ask, however, on what Rava said, that Rav was one time to Taina that the par shel Yom Kippurim is not a par shel tzibur. Asked the Gemara, Toshma, the boy Rabbi Elazar asked, on top of Nun Amud Beis, L'divrei ha'omer, par Yom Kippurim korban yachid, according to the opinion, namely Rabbi Meir, that says the par Yom Kippurim is a korban yachid, oise tmura or eino oise tmura. Can you make a tmura or not? If you want to then make an exchange and put kedusha onto another animal, the kedusha of this chatos, is it going to be effective to be kadosh, the second animal? Lav mechlal. So here the Gemara makes the diuk. Lav mechlal diika laman de'omer ditzibur. Is it not therefore that Rav Meir, who's speaking to the Tanakama, that there's a Tanakama who holds that indeed is shel tzibur? So another kasha we're trying to then ask again on Rabbi Meir, on Rava. The Gemara says, Loi, you have no proof that the para shel Yom Kippurim is a korban tzibur from here. Because Mechlal di'ika lamanda omar de shutfin. Because you can say that no, he's coming to argue against the Tanakama, who says that indeed the par over here is a par of shutfin. And that's what he's coming to argue. And that's what Rava had said before as well. So you have no proof to disprove Rava and say that the par shel Yom Kippurim is a korban shel tzibur.